J.D. Vance, the Vice President of the United States, took over Charlie Kirk's podcast today. And he quotes Charlie Kirk in the podcast to the point where people have taken actual clips side by side of Charlie Kirk speaking and what J.D. Vance says. And then J.D. Vance says, he didn't say that. Charlie Kirk never said those words. How have we gotten to the point where they can lie so easily and people just lop it up? Don't believe your eyes and ears. Believe me. He quotes him and we have the actual footage. And the Vice President of the United States is saying that peace isn't possible, that unity isn't possible. Why is he calling for more violence? Why is he calling for an escalation of this? He should be calling for this to stop, and we should all be calling to stop giving weapons to crazy people. Because it doesn't really matter which side they claim they are on. They shouldn't have access to these weapons. And that's what I've been saying all along.
So today, J.D. Vance says this.
And while our side of the aisle certainly has its crazies, it is a statistical fact that most of the lunatics in American politics today are proud members of the far left.
And honestly, it seems like it's the messaging of our current administration. And I don't get it. And the thing is, I think I need somebody to explain it to me like I'm 5 years old. I'm really having trouble grasping how the far left is more extreme than the far right. And maybe it's my bubble, so please, in the comments, help me out.
The far right are extremists who see violence as an answer over unity.
They are pro-fascism and authoritarianism who want to dismantle the democratic system in general. I mean, basically everything that makes America, America. They are neo-newsies and white supremacists. They promote violence against minorities and immigrants and don't believe in immigration in general. They are Christian nationalists who think that people who are not Christian deserve to be. They also think that the homeless in this country deserve to be. They don't think that women should vote or be in leadership roles, and they think that they should just be submissive to their husband, baby makers. They don't believe in bodily autonomy. They believe in suppression of the press. They think that political opponents, minorities, or anyone that they deem an enemy should be destroyed. And in general, they just think that society needs to collapse violently and be restructured to where we are completely controlled and don't have any rights anymore, I guess, other than pew-pews. So I'm trying to understand how the far left is worse. Because listen, I find the far left to be very cringe on a lot of topics, but I'm failing to see how it's more dangerous. Like wanting to tax the rich and have health care for everyone and feeding babies and poor people. What? I'm just failing to see how having more freedoms and equality based off of who we are as people and financially is dangerous to anyone other than the billionaires. Ha.
Y'all, in another episode of As the White Hood Turns, did y'all see that Couch Boy took over for the Deceased podcast today? Did y'all see that? Did y'all see that he hosted the Deceased podcast? Now, my question is, where are all the people, and we know the people I'm talking about, that were so mad because Kamala wasn't doing nothing? She was vice president for 4 years. And what did she do? What were her accomplishments? But these same fuckers are apparently okay with the fact that Couch Boy has taken a vacation every month for every month that him and Syphilitic Sid been in office. I want to know, I'm sorry, am I hollering? Am I yelling? Yes, because where in the job description of vice president does it ever say that you are a podcaster? That you can leave your whole ass job being vice president to go be a podcaster for the deceased? if hypocrisy isn't on brand for these people. They are literally the walking definition of hypocrisy. Every 5 minutes, where's Kamala? What's Kamala doing? I guess the only thing we know, we can find him doing a podcast and we can find him on vacation. But I just need somebody to tell me, please, put it in the comments. What is his job? Because he don't seem to be doing it. Does he not have one? I need to understand. This has angered me in ways that I can't even speak. Now, again, I done said all I'm going to say about the deceased. I ain't got nothing else to say. We all know what he said. They over here trying to rewrite history like he didn't say all the shit he said. We heard it. But when are we going to accept these people are not trying to govern? They are not trying to run a country. They are literally glorified podcast bros. That's it. Okay, bye.
The U.S. Senate is preparing to confirm a replacement member of the Federal Reserve Board in preparation for Donald Trump to make an unprecedented change to our economic system, provided that the D.C. Court of Appeals or possibly the U.S. Supreme Court plays along. Donald Trump has pushed for removal of Dr. Lisa Cook from the Reserve Board, a move unprecedented in the history of the board that protects the American economy and generally uses its buffer from political whims to make sometimes unpopular but necessary decisions to keep our economy stable. The president has attempted to fire Dr. Cook, alleging mortgage fraud, although evidence seemed to suggest that the allegations are false. Currently, the question is before the Court of Appeals, who has not yet responded, but with the Reserve Board meeting tomorrow morning, time is short. So if the Court of Appeals does not respond quickly, the president will likely move on to the Supreme Court to try to strong-arm Dr. Cook's removal. Meanwhile, the U.S. Senate has capitulated to the president's demands, and at this very moment is voting to confirm the president's choice, Stephen Moran, to the Federal Reserve Board. "I'm never going to claim to be the smartest person in the room," Mr. Moran told the Wall Street Journal. "I'm happy to be the most annoying." Concerns about Stephen Moran's willingness to steer the Reserve Board in a manner that makes Donald Trump look good at the expense of the American economy have created a great deal of concern across the country. Your senators are currently meeting in Washington to decide this question. Feel free to contact them before it's too late if you feel so moved. The rest of this may be up to the courts. As of this moment, there has been no filing in the D.C. Circuit Court, according to Pacer, the online filing system. Follow me for more about the law and government. I will do my best to keep you up to date.
J.D. Vance was a guest host on the Charlie Kirk show today, and he sat there and straight up lied to every single American watching. And regardless of whether you're on the right or the left, I want you to understand that the Vice President of the United States went up there and said that while the right certainly has their crazies, the vast majority of the lunatics in politics today lie on the far left. That, and then he said statistically, that is statistically the exact opposite. If you look at statistics, and again, this is not meant to divide, like I'm sure his rhetoric was, this is meant to educate. If you look at statistics, virtually every single study shows that politically motivated violence comes from an overwhelming majority from the far right. And in fact, to make this very serious issue a little more lighthearted, I want to challenge anybody, MAGA or anybody else, to find me one study that says that more political violence comes from the left. And in fact, if you can find me 2 studies that show that more political violence happens on the left side of the political aisle, I will wear a Make America Great Again hat for an entire day. Maybe I'll even film a video on that. I'm confident that you won't be able to find it because, unfortunately, those studies don't exist. Now, for the vice president to go on a show that is watched by millions of people and further divide the nation after Donald Trump says he couldn't care less about unity is the exact wrong, opposite message that the leaders of this country should be having right now. And in fact, if you look at every single previous president, the good and the bad, almost none of them would do that. Almost all of them would try to unite the country. This is an unfortunate, ass-backward, idiocracy world and country that we're living in. And if we do not course correct soon, we're not going to have a country for much longer.
Just to give you a military update, what's going on under Donald Trump and Pete Hegseth. Donald Trump announced that they bombed another fishing boat near Venezuela. 2 people died in that situation. Claimed it was full of drugs, but there's no proof of it. God knows why he did it or what he was trying to prove in doing it, but he's done it. They're also moving military into Memphis, Tennessee, and I found this interesting. They even brought in some tanks to fucking Memphis, Tennessee. The only problem is some people stole 2 of the tanks and drove them a fucking way. Pete Hegseth and Donnie Trump, you motherfuckers are so tough. You know, they're doing all this ridiculous shit. Now they're going to go after Democrats because of this Charlie Kirk thing. There was no Democrat involved in this, but they keep trying to push that narrative. They keep trying to say it is. Donnie, what's wrong with you? It's pretty clear who was involved. It was not only somebody on the right, somebody way far right. Democrats had nothing to do with this, but you're trying so hard to say it was Democrats. But here's the thing, Don, not everybody's as dumb as you. Everybody knows who it was. This is getting almost ridiculous at this point, but when we're talking about our military, when we're talking about our judicial system, it's becoming just a fucking joke.
Incredible gaslighting by the gaslighter-in-chief. Listen to what he says when they ask him why he didn't lower the American flags when a Democrat, Melissa Hortman, was unalived.
In retrospect, given all of the moving ways that this White House has a tribute to Charlie Kirk, right, do you think it would have been fitting to lower the flags to have staff when Melissa Hortman, the Minnesota House Speaker, was gunned down by an assassin as well?
I'm not familiar. The
Minnesota House Speaker, a Democrat, was assassinated this summer.
Well, if the governor had asked me to do that, I would have done that. But the governor of Minnesota didn't ask me. I didn't. I wouldn't have thought of that, but I would have if somebody had asked me. People make requests for the lowering of flag, and oftentimes you have to say no because it would be a lot of lowering. The flag would never be up. Had the governor of Minnesota asked me to do that, I would have done that gladly.
And given the killing of Melissa Hortman, the attack on Paul Pelosi, the attack on Gabby Giffords, the attack on the Pennsylvania governor's mansion, why make the case that violence is only on one side? It seems to be taking place.
I didn't say it's on one side, but I say the radical left causes tremendous violence, and they seem to do it in a bigger way. But the radical left really has caused a lot of problems for this country. I really think they hate our country. Okay, yeah, please.
It's almost like this incident where he said he wouldn't call Governor Tim Walz never happened.
On Minnesota, there were a lot of horrific details that came out today about the suspect who's been charged there. Have you called the governor yet or been able to speak to any of them?
I don't really call him. He appointed this guy to a position. I think the governor of Minnesota is so whacked out. I'm not calling him. Why would I call him? I could call him and say, hi, how you doing? The guy doesn't have a clue. He's a mess. So, I could be nice and call him, but why waste time?
Yeah, why waste time? What a shame. I get it. Ultimate gaslighting. This is gaslighting at the next level. I mean, it's almost as if I didn't have any memory of the things that he was saying, and I just kind of heard bits and pieces of his talking points, I'd actually believe this guy. But that's not the case. And we know what he's saying is not true, and what he's doing is not presidential. And I'd hate to say it, but I'll say it. Shame on you, Donald Trump. Shame on you.
The United States, under the leadership of Donald J. Trump, has just blown up another boat in international waters. That's right. Trump just ordered another boat from Venezuela blown up in international waters. he still has not given us concrete proof that the first boat he blew up was what he said it was. He said that the first boat that he blew up were 11 members of Agua, a terrorist drug dealing group from Venezuela. He never provided any evidence. He just wanted us to take his word for it. His word, which is just like gold standard, right? I mean, he never lies. He never tells mistruths. Meanwhile, since that boat strike, Venezuela and other groups have said that the group of people on that boat were civilians. People, regular people, who when they saw the US military turned around and headed back and were blown up anyways. So the fact that we are blowing up another boat in international waters on his say-so is insane. What's more, he doesn't have the authorization constitutionally to do this. Of course, pretending like Donald Trump actually gave a shit about the Constitution is something that would be very hard to believe. It is up to Republicans in Congress to say enough is enough, and we are not going to stand for it anymore. But if you believe that Republicans in Congress are going to do that, I've got a bridge in Brooklyn I want to sell you. As always, please make sure to follow me on other platforms because this one might not be around for much longer.
Everybody is arguing right now online about which side of the political spectrum is more violent. So I thought that I would skip feelings and go look at facts. What I found was a massive 2022 study which analyzed over 70,000 extremist attacks worldwide across nearly 50 years. I found the results actually surprising and informational. So they studied over 1,500 radicalized individuals in the United States first. Left-wing extremists had a 33% chance of using violence. Right-wing extremists, 61%. Islamist extremists actually hit 62, so right-wing and Islamists were right next to each other. That same year, the LA Times reported that right-wing extremists had killed over 330 people in the last decade. That is 75% of all political violence deaths. Left-wing, 4%. So this isn't opinion, this is data, spanning decades and continents, and I'm happy to send you the study, or I should say studies, because there are multiple. Every single study agrees, even Grok, who belongs to Elon Musk, agrees. This is universally agreed upon. Politicians saying otherwise, influencers, people online, they're lying. And you should ask yourself why. Right now we are seeing rising right-wing extremism globally and here. So pretending that that's not a problem is actually very dangerous for all of us. The numbers tell the story. Please don't listen to politicians online who have motives for inflaming violence that are very, very dark. Look at the data, look at your sources, and ask yourself, why would some people be trying to escalate violence right now? And who's trying to de-escalate it? Maybe I'll stick with them, because that and sticking with the facts is how we keep ourselves safe.
Well, it's another Monday. What do I got going today? Since the interest rate and inflation reports coming out this week, I'm going to go over that. The math is in, and surprise, surprise, the U.S. citizens are getting screwed. The federal government introduces a good idea for affordable housing, while the BC government doubles down on a terrible idea. And I think there's more to the U.S. Venezuela thing, besides the oil. And it's still not drugs. First up, the inflation rate and the interest rate. Let's go over the forward guidance from RBC. Another close call for the BOC, but not so much from the Fed. Long story short, we know what's happening. The jobs reports in the U.S. have been less than stellar. That puts pressure on the Fed to reduce the rate. Since the Fed's going to reduce the rates, we're going to reduce the rates. Because Tiff and JP, they talk. All right, now the inflation report. Last week I gave a preview. I said we'd come in around 1.7%. But I did say it could be around 1.9%. What's going on? Well, this year, every other month seems to be alternating as far as the amount of price growth. And August should be a low month. At the top of the list still is going to be mortgage interest cost and rents, even though asking rents are falling across the country. All right, the federal government has created a new agency called Build Canada Homes, which is going to build affordable housing on federal land. Will this help? Yeah, it's because it's federal land, so you're removing the land cost. The cliche in real estate is location, location, location. So the big question is, where are these federal lands? Will people be able to commute from those federal lands to places of work, as an example? Is it a good idea? Yeah, of course it's a good idea. And of course, nothing stops the federal government from going out there and buying up more land for this program. Now we just got to get people paid better. Now BC's a little upset because none of the first round of projects will be in BC. And BC is full of bad ideas. Vancouver City Council proposes empty homes tax hike targets unsold new builds. If it's a new build and it's unsold, that's because there's no one to buy them. Builders are not landlords. What do you expect these builders will do when you tax them for not doing a business that they are not involved in? Yes, I have heard the stories of people buying a property and leaving it vacant and just waiting for it to appreciate in value. That's a terrible idea. No intelligent investor is doing that. Like, no one's going to buy property, pay an empty homes tax, pay property tax, pay condo fees for a shit return. A return that's probably negated by all these taxes and fees. They should call this the BC residential idiot tax. Because if someone is buying one of these properties, paying those fees and those taxes, and expecting a positive return at the end, you're an idiot. All right, the U.S. citizens are getting screwed. Trump's tariffs are bigger than his tax cuts for most Americans. This chart measures the impact of the tax cuts and tariffs on the U.S. public. In the purple is what you gain from the tax cuts. As you can see, the lower group gains nothing. They lose more. And the yellow is what you lose from the tariffs. As you can see, until you get to the top tax bracket, everyone's losing more from tariffs than they gain from the tax cut. Man, these Republicans are always thinking about the little people. Granted, it's usually in a horrible way regarding children, but still, they're always thinking about the little people. Let me wrap it up with a little thing about Venezuela. I was talking about Venezuelan property this past weekend to a client and talk about how inexpensive it is. Now, you can go to Century 21 Venezuela and look at the prices. Just so you know, the listing price is 5 to 10x the market price. Look, I know I keep saying that what happens in the economy doesn't really matter for real estate. Well, at least that's true here in Canada. Venezuela is a different story. They had true hyperinflation, and the people here in Canada that are worried about that kind of thing have no idea what it is. At the last round of devaluation, Venezuela subtracted 6 zeros from its currency. 3 years before that, they removed 5 zeros from the currency, and a few years before that, they removed 3 zeros from the currency. That means that if you had 100 trillion bolivar back before Hugo Chavez, you'd have 1 now. On top of that, they've had a mass exodus because of the shit economy. About 8 million Venezuelans have left. We know what's happening in that country with the Star of David on their flag. How they plan to turn that strip of land into vacation property. The shores of Venezuela are in the Caribbean. And if you bought property there now, and things turned around, ooh, you'd make a lot of money. And when you're talking about like the global illegal substance trade, they're not using fishing boats. No. If they can take out Nicolas Maduro, I expect a lot of real estate companies to move to Venezuela.
We have breaking news right now. Donald Trump and this White House are preparing for a massive crackdown on left-leaning organizations that can start as soon as later this week, following the death of Charlie Kirk. Meanwhile, Donald Trump is trying to play off the fact that he did not lower flags for Melissa Hortman, the Minnesota lawmaker who was gunned down in a political assassination earlier this year, essentially saying, I don't know who, pretending not to know who Melissa Hortman was in a stunning Oval Office interaction that I need you to watch. And Donald Trump is claiming now to not know who Melissa Hortman was. Melissa Hortman was a Minnesota lawmaker who was gunned down at her home earlier this year in a stunning form of political violence, a literal assassination on United States soil. And now he is now saying essentially that he does not know who Melissa Hortman was when asked why he wouldn't lower the flags to half staff like he did for Charlie Kirk. He went on to say that if the governor, Tim Walz, asked him to, he would have done so, but that it's not a thought that he ever had. A stunning remark coming from the President of the United States, and comes as this White House is preparing for a massive crackdown, according to Vice President J.D. Vance and Stephen Miller, on left-leaning organizations. Today, Vice President Vance hosted the Charlie Kirk show, where he went on and proceeded to reject unity, reject coming together, blaming the left for political violence in this country, blaming the left for Charlie Kirk's shooting. And as there is this political crackdown, this major crackdown coming, I do want you to know I'm not going to stop no matter what. even if he comes after journalists like me. So make sure to subscribe to support my work or send a one-time donation via Venmo to Aaron-Parnas, because the truth is important in this moment. It's never been more important than right now. Vice President Vance blamed Kirk's death on a growing and powerful minority on the far left, rejecting the possibility of unity. And FBI Director Kash Patel has revealed that the suspect in Kirk's killing left a message about taking the, quote, opportunity to assassinate him. They have DNA evidence. And according to the Washington Post today, we're now learning that the suspected killer actually wrote in a Discord chat shortly before surrendering, "I'm sorry for all of this," seemingly confessing to the shooting of Kirk. White House Deputy Chief of Staff Stephen Miller vowed to target leftist, quote, terror networks behind doxing and violence, blaming and pledging government resources to dismantle them in Charlie Kirk's name. Remind you, he's not targeting the right-wing news sources that are actively doxing individuals and trying to get them fired for their jobs for just speaking about Charlie Kirk in what may be in an inappropriate way. He's targeting the left-leaning organizations. And today we learned that the Washington Post fired an opinion columnist, Karen Attia, for sharing her opinion after criticizing political violence, racial double standards, and U.S. gun apathy following her posts about Charlie Kirk's assassination. And folks, lots of folks are getting lots of threats. Utah Democrats, including State Representative Angela Romero, reported receiving threatening calls, blaming them for Charlie Kirk's killing, prompting discussions about safety measures and possible legislation. Secretary of State Marco Rubio reaffirmed that the United States will deny or revoke visas for people deemed to be celebrating Charlie Kirk's killing, though legal authority and implementation details remain unclear. So it's some significant news coming out of Washington, D.C. They're launching this major crackdown. It's happening, and it's happening in real time, and it doesn't look like they're going to stop at just one organization and one person. They're going after anyone and everyone that they may perceive to be essentially a threat to their agenda. So very stunning news coming out of Washington, D.C., and it's something that we're going to be monitoring over the next several days and weeks to come. Now, in non-Kirk news, today Donald Trump announced the creation of the Memphis Safe Task Force and announced National Guard deployment to crack down on crime in Memphis, Tennessee, saying that Chicago is next. Republican leaders in Tennessee welcome the move, but Memphis's Democratic mayor and local officials are once again criticizing this as militarized overreach. Today, a new House Republican bill would expand federal power to deny or revoke passports officially aimed at traffickers and terrorists, but it contains very vague language that could threaten free speech, especially amid crackdowns on pro-Palestinian protesters. This bill's goal is to essentially be able to deny passports to pro-Palestinian protesters. Trump announced a second United States military strike on an alleged Venezuelan drug boat in international waters, killing 3 people after a similar strike earlier this month killed 11 people. Venezuela disputed the claims, saying that the crews were not cartel members, while legal questions remain over the strike's justification. Today, Trump was asked about trans flags on 14th Street in Washington, D.C. He's saying that he wouldn't oppose taking them down, but noted it could lead to lawsuits over free speech rights. Jeffrey Epstein's estate gave the House Oversight Committee more subpoena documents, including additional pages from his birthday book. Thousands celebrated the Mexican Independence Day parade in Chicago's Little Village, despite smaller crowds due to the immigration crackdown that is currently occurring. Maureen Comey, the daughter of former FBI Director James Comey, has sued the Trump administration over her firing from the Justice Department, alleging that the firing was unlawful, politically motivated, and retaliatory due to her family ties. Today, Trump suggested companies switch from quarterly to semi-annual earnings reports, arguing that it would cut costs and reduce short-term pressures, reviving a debate previously raised by business leaders like Warren Buffett and James Dimon. Kremlin spokesperson Dmitry Peskov says that there has been no progress in organizing a U.S., Ukraine, Russia trilateral summit, essentially noting a pause in ongoing negotiations while reiterating Moscow's readiness for a diplomatic solution. It seems as though that there is not going to be a peace deal between Russia and Ukraine anytime soon. Folks, today is a very busy day. It's a very big day with this crackdown coming. It's more important than ever that we spread the truth. So please share. Please make sure that people see this, because the truth is so important in this moment. And I will continue fighting for the truth no matter what. So make sure to subscribe to support, and I'll see you very soon. So stay tuned.